Hoje alguém and let's do the 4 limitless contemplations, which is so important for everything in our lives. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Semjen damje dewatang dewe jutang den baju chik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang trawaju chik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawaju chik, nering chaktang ni tang trawe tang nom chempo lani paju chik. So tonight we're going to finish off with a deep understanding that I was doing with all of you on how we create our own suffering, on causes and conditions. So those of you who are new, you can, if you want to go back and get that, or, you know, the last one or the last two, but I usually give a bit of a summary anyway. But if you want to go back, they are available at our center. It's very, very easy to go back and get any of them or any of the recordings, because I've been recording since COVID. So then every topic, I think that we've covered almost all the topics. So we were talking about a beautiful, beautiful teaching on creating our causes and conditions. And tonight, I want to start with a lovely story, which is the story of one day, a saint was taking a bath in the river. His disciple sat on the bank with the saint's clothes, asana and rosary. The saint noticed a scorpion struggling in the current. Taking pity, he lifted the bedraggled scorpion in his palm and started wading toward the bank. No sooner had the scorpion recovered than it promptly stung the saint on the palm. The saint felt an unbearable burning pain shooting up his arm, but he did not drop the scorpion. Instead, he gently shook his hand to encourage the scorpion to move away from the wound. The saint's disciple, watching from the bank, became alarmed, but did not say anything. And the saint had only taken a few more steps when the scorpion stung him again. And a searing pain more intense than the first one went all the way up his arm and throbbed in his head. The saint staggered and nearly collapsed in the river. This time the disciple did call out, "Put him down, Guruji. He will only sting you again. Leave him to his fate. Your kindness is of no value to such a creature. He will learn nothing from it." The saint ignored him and continued walking. He'd nearly reached the bank when the scorpion stung him for a third time. This pain exploded into his head, lungs, and heart, and the disciple saw a blissful smile appear on the saint's face before he collapsed into the river. The disciple dragged the saint to the shore, still smiling and still cradling the scorpion in his palm. As soon as they'd reached the shore, the scorpion crawled away as quickly as it could. "Guruji," said the disciple after the saint had regained consciousness, "how can you smile? That wretched creature nearly killed you." "You are right, my son," said the saint. "But he was only following his dharma, his nature. It is the dharma of a scorpion to sting, and it is the dharma of a saint to save its life. He's following his dharma, and I'm following mine. Everything is in its proper place. That's why I'm so happy." Okay. I think last week you had a lovely talk with Kathy where she spoke about her illness. I haven't had a chance to listen, but I'm sure it was similar to that. That basically, if you understand that you're in the right place at the right time, not the wrong place at the wrong time, which we all think we are often. If you're in the right place at the right time, then all is just as it should be. And as our masters tell us, that's how you purify everything in your life. And we're going to look at today the last part of the causes and conditions. And then next week, I want to go on to a real comparison between Sem, the human part of the mind, and Rikpa, the nature of mind. Because I think when you can understand these, then you can do what the saint did. And then another little story I want to read. Two disciples of an old master were arguing about the true path to enlightenment. One said that the path was built on energy and effort. You must give yourself totally and fully with your effort to follow the way of the law, to pray, to pay attention, to live rightly. The second disciple disagreed. It's not effort at all. That's only based on ego. It's pure surrender. To follow the way to enlightenment, to awaken, is to let go of all things and live the teachings. As they could not agree who was right, they went to see the master. He listened to the first disciple praise the path of wholehearted effort. And when asked by this disciple, is this the true path? The master said, you're right. The second disciple was quite upset and responded eloquently by describing the path of surrender and letting go. When he had finished, he said, is this not the true path? And the master replied, you're right. And the third student who was sitting there said, but master, they can't both be right. And the master smiled and said, and you're right too. Okay. So when you look at that story, it's got a very important message for all of this, because that story is really about the fact that on a relative level, doesn't matter what you do, as long as you find that devotion, that path, that if you need to do it. I was listening to Dzongkar Gyatso Rinpoche talking about discipline, and he said, if you look at wisdom, meditation, and discipline, the three aspects, he said, you must always put discipline in the boot of the car and let meditation, really rule the way and let it go on with what you're doing. But I think it's so important that whichever way you choose doesn't really matter, as long as you make that connection with your own intrinsic self-existing awareness. And it takes different people. I know a lot of people from the group, and there are a lot of you, really like to do the prayers and like to do the Vajrayana and like to do all of those things. And others say to me, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really matter. If you take your time, if you walk, and if you actually walk and you're in touch and you're aware, that's okay. It doesn't really matter as long as you're able to go back to that nature. Once you're back in that nature and that nature of mind takes over, then you are in the right place. It is spontaneous. And then the causes and conditions are no longer relevant. That's what I've been teaching over these three things. So I want to just do a little quote from The Circle of the Sun, which is what we're going to be studying tonight, The Heart Essence of Dzogchen, which is by Traleg Kyabgon. And what he says is, practitioners begin to understand that ultimately, the realization to be achieved is not extrinsic to the state of one's being, but intrinsic, present within oneself. And that was what I was telling you about the causes and conditions. It's really very important that you understand that, and that you really see that, because it is important. And when you look in Ati Yoga or Dzogchen, which is right at the top of all the yanas, okay, and it doesn't matter whether you do the yana at the bottom or you do the yana at the top, it doesn't make any difference. But that path is traversed in a speedy manner without a great deal of effort or exertion. And if one practices properly, he says, one could achieve an enormous sense of fulfillment in months or years. The body as it is now could be transformed into the authentic expression of one's body. That's so important, because our bodies are not in their authentic expression. Our bodies are aging, wrinkled, sick, all these kind of things. They're not in the authentic condition. And as soon as you unite with that intrinsic awareness, the body starts changing. So what happens to these lamas is that at the end of their lives, when they're old, they actually look much younger than they ever looked before. It's the most amazing thing to see. So that's what happens to your body and the environment. The world is transformed into a Buddha field. Now people say, how could that be? How could that earthquake, that war in Ukraine, those killings, those shootings, how could they be a Buddha field? But that is because your perception is only on the level of your human same mind. But actually the world is a Buddha field if we could see it as it really is, not through our conditioning. And he says, the individual could appreciate and enjoy all this through having understood the self-existing awareness within their own mind stream. And then he asks the question, how is this extraordinary achievement possible? He says, according to the esoteric teachings, the inner teachings, this is possible because instead of thinking karma, cause and effect, and conflicting emotions as something seen to be abandoned, discarded, or got rid of, they are seen as self-purifying. That was the story of the saint and the scorpion. They are seen as self-purifying. The conflicting emotions, the karmic tendencies, and the conceptual proliferation are seen as self-freeing and self-purifying. Because of this, those teachings are exceedingly superior. Now, you can debate this with me. I'm very happy to debate it. In fact, I like it when you challenge and you give your own opinions and everything. I really think it's so important that you do. But as the practitioner progresses, and when I say practitioner, even Pammy, you, who always saying to me, yeah, but I won't finish in this life. Yeah, but I'm not like you. You're exactly like me, okay? You're exactly like me. I just really give it a good time because I'm sick and tired of the way my life, I'm sick and tired of the causes and conditions coming to trip me up. And I'm sick and tired of those negative emotions. And they must be seen for what they are. And he says, as the practitioner progresses, first, the gross defilements begin to subside. Then the subtle defilements. And finally, the most subtle defilements. He says wisdom, which is everything we need. Wisdom must drive the way. Wisdom is nothing other than realizing this fact. So when the karmic obscurations are seen in a completely different light, wisdom is there. When there's anger towards something, towards a situation, towards a relationship, if you look deeply into mirror-like wisdom, that anger is mirror-like wisdom, but we can't see it. We can only see the anger and disappointment at the person that we are looking at. And he says, wisdom is nothing other than realizing that fact. Sorry, when Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche was talking, he said, wisdom must drive the car, meditation must sit next to the driver, and discipline must be in the boot. Okay, so it's there, but he says in this Western world, it doesn't really matter about strict discipline. But for me, the discipline is about doing some kind of practice. If you don't, it's really hard to clear out all that thing and to see things as they really are. So in my practice, all the time, if I'm even doing Chenrezi tonight, I'm trying to see it for what it is, because at the end of Chenrezi, it says, and then everything became a pure Buddha field. That's what we are looking at. not the discipline of sitting down and doing Chenrezi every night and roting it off something and not touching your heart. That's useless. That's hopeless. It's not ever going to get to intrinsic awareness. And that Eric sitting there with his little grin on the face, yesterday I said to him, I'm coming to you. But yesterday I said to you, if you don't give me your own experience, if you give me a whole dissertation, I'm shoving you, I'm stopping you. Okay, I want to hear your experiences, not another whole dissertation. They've got enough dissertations from me. Okay, I'm coming to you now. I just want to finish this little bit. He says, as defilements decrease, wisdom increases. And that's how it is. Now, he gives a beautiful example, which I think is so important. He says, if a person who was born blind, okay, contacts a doctor skilled in restoring sight, then that person will be able to see. Gradually, as the blind person becomes used to having sight, they will be able to observe and perceive all the details around them. The analogy is used because the blind person needs to have eye organs. If that blind person hasn't got eye organs, okay, to begin with, without these, the sight couldn't be restored. The physician has only assisted the blind person to see, nothing extraneous, because the potentiality for sight was already there before he started. They just had something wrong with the organ. He fixed that and the person could see. Now, similarly, all living beings are already endowed with this pure Buddha nature, intrinsic awareness, which is pure right from the beginning. And that primordial purity is covered by defilements. So a spiritual doctor must assist to help make use of the eye of wisdom. The eye of wisdom is a term we use very little of, but I was taught that in one of the texts that I use, the eye of wisdom. It's a very, very interesting thing, the eye of wisdom, because it was all there to begin with. Can you all understand that? So the doctor could only restore the sight because the organs were there to begin with. The spiritual teacher can only awaken what is in you because it is already in you. Right, Eric, debate me. Let's hear. But listen, if the lights go off, don't get a fright. I'll reboot and be back in 1 minute. So just stay where you are. Go on, Eric.
No. I'm in full agreement with you today. Full agreement. That first thing of the saint and the scorpion just reminded me of the previous comment you'd mentioned about the Dalai Lama when he was with the Chinese and everything. And what he feared most was losing his compassion, like the saint, you know. That's just kind of the parallel I drew over there. And then obviously I like how, I like the reminder that, you know, the purity, the wisdom, the compassion, that's inherent. The idiocy is actually adventitiously present, you know. And even though things may seem otherwise.
Let's call it idiocy. Let's call it ignorance, because we're going to talk about it tonight. Because let me say ignorance is important, because ignorance means ignoring the truth, whereas idiocy kind of means you haven't got the potential anymore.
You're right.
On idiot levels.
Which is what I see all the time. But I mean, of course, it's all based in ignorance. If they weren't ignorant, if they weren't ignoring the truth, you know, and simply, again, accepting things on face value, that's the problem right there. Not examining, not actually inquiring, seeking to.
How does that affect you?
Me.
How does that affect your life? Because I don't want another dissertation. I want to know how it affects your life. You're going to have to butt in, and you're going to have to give me your stuff, what you're doing and how that affects you. How does it affect you? Let me know.
Well, with me, Mel, honestly, I try and live the view. Like I said, you know, I try to remind myself that, of course, it's always all mind, you know, and that it takes off the pressure. At least you're not out there trying to blame something else for your happiness or for your, you know, your, what you call it, suffering. And at the end of the day, though, today, though, on my experience, I just had a couple of thoughts about what you had said about the speedy path, you know, And I just want to know if it's right, because we take everything as the path. So literally everything you're doing becomes the path. Is that one of the reasons, one of the faster ones? And then obviously the one student said without exertion. Remember the 3 students who were speaking to the master, and the one said, look, this is the path without exertion. And then of course I draw the parallel with that and Dzogchen, where it's effortless. You're simply resting in what you're already doing, which is knowing that you know, and we're not doing anything more. And I know I'm the other student. No, 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 we have to do it like this. You have to start like this. You have to study this. You got to finish this. The other one's like, no, it's just effortless. And so the last thing I want to say in closing is that the reason we're all right, like Ajahn Chah likes to say, you're right and you aren't correct, but you're correct and you're not right, is that the final destination is the same for all of us. Whether we take my path or your path or the other third student just listening over there saying, but how can they both be right? The final destination is the same for all of us. So we are all right. All roads lead to home, you know?
Exactly.
And so the ground is there. We'll all end up in the
But I want you to give me more things of your own, not dissertations. I'll give the dissertations, you give me your feedback. But thank you. What you've said is absolutely correct. And you often are correct. But the thing is that I want to see it applying to you so that you come out with it, and that will be amazing. Okay, so let's just carry on a little bit. If the lights go off, don't forget. What we started discussing in the last session is the 3 aspects that describe everything. The ground of being, which is the essence, which is the primordial purity, which is the emptiness. The nature, which is totally indivisible from it, is the spontaneous presence, the luminosity, the light, the clarity, the awareness is the nature. So, God, it is painful that we have this load shedding. Can you all hear me now? They're all frozen. They can't hear me. Why?
Mel, we can hear you. I can see you.
Now.
Yes.
Can you all see me? But
Yes,
it
we
looks
can hear you.
I can hear you.
okay. Great. Sorry about that. I have to go off and then it's asking me to sign in and it's asking me to get a passcode and a this and a that to come back in. It's really ridiculous, and you can't get these people out for love or money, okay? Because they're not interested. They just want you to put more things in, but they don't want to do what they have to. Okay, so let's go back to those 3 things. The ground or the essence, the nature, which is luminosity, awareness, clarity, and the unlimited responsiveness, which is your capacity, your creative expression. All the forms of whatever you've got are all in those 3. And what Traleg Kyabgon says is, from the essence and the ground of being, in the essence, in our nature, in the emptiness, in whatever you want to call it, there is nothing of confusion because there are no causes and conditions. He says it's got to be with the other 2 aspects, that either you're not having the clarity, you're not having the awareness, and however it's being expressed is where the confusion is coming in. It's like so important for all of you to understand that, because if we can understand it, then there is where the possibility of confusion comes in. And he says, take the example of space. He says space, so people are getting bumped off, space is unconditioned. Okay, there's no conditioning. It's a state of total openness, like the sky. Yet clouds are formed in the space due to the coming together of causes and conditions. So the self-display of the mind is like the clouds out of space and essence. So from the same essence, we get the pure expression, but we also get the impure expression, which is the way we see it through our conditioned eyes. It's really important that you all understand that, okay? So confusion arises when one does not recognize the expression of the essence for what it is. So let's go back to my example. if you are really annoyed with someone and you've got someone in your life that is really awful and ugly and terrible and makes you very angry, when you look at that, you think this is the most awful, impure situation. But when you turn it around, it's completely different. The same with the wisdom of equality. If you're looking at someone who's arrogant, but you're really looking at the wisdom of equality says everyone's the same. And so when everybody's the same, nobody is better off or much better off than anyone else. And it's important for us to understand this, because ordinary sentient beings who have no practice, then if you've got no practice and no awareness and no knowledge of any of this, then what happens? The alaya, which is the ground, serves as the precondition for samsara to go on, for the impure things to go on, because it's the same essence. But if you can't see that what is being expressed from the essence is pure, then you're going to see it as impure, and then the alaya, the ground, becomes the receptacle for karma, for karmic impressions and tendencies. But those karmic impressions are not the truth. There can never be regression once real insight has been into who you really are. There can never, ever be any regression at all. Okay, so that's why we can have, once we understand that essence, there are no more causes and conditions. If things like the scorpion stings us, it stings us. If we've got money, we've got money. If we haven't, we haven't. We actually accept. I was telling somebody who moved into a place that was really, really, really small. And this person was grumbling to me that the place was small. And I said, well, if you see it as small, it's going to be small. But how about from the true nature, seeing it as containing everything that you need in it? So you have a different attitude to the small home that you've got. You can do that. It's really, really important that you actually can do that. Okay, so anybody want to ask anything or say anything at this point? Please do. Not only Eric, everybody, please do. They're hearing the bell, my dogs. Please, if there's anything you want to ask or anything you want to say. Otherwise, I'm just going. Yes, please.
Melanie, hello. Please. With regards to the view, the resting in the nature of mind, okay. How does one prevent like a nihilism from arising?
That's such a good question. In other words, if the essence is empty, okay, then how do we stop ourselves from thinking, well, there's nothing there, so what difference does anything make? It's a very important question, because that's the confusion in the word empty and the word emptiness. Because the word empty, if you've got an empty fridge, you're definitely paranoid about it, and you definitely say, this fridge is nihilistic, it's empty, okay? But emptiness, the word ness, when you've got that what do you call it, I can't think of the English word for ness, whatever it's called, can't think what you call a thing that's added to a word. I can't remember the word. Anyway, it's a suffix or a not a prefix.
No.
Or whatever it is. Anyway, that word ness is so important, because that word ness means filled with potential. I once heard Mingyur Rinpoche giving a discussion on ness. once when I was at Sammy Ling, I heard him giving a discussion on Ness. And Ness added to the word means there's nothing specific, but it's full of potential. Now that's a really different thing to an empty fridge. It means a space that could give birth to absolutely anything. Do you know what I mean? It's possible. It's full of possibilities. And from that, we get rid of the nihilistic thing, because people say, so if there are no causes and conditions in my true nature of mind, then I can do anything. I can go in and shoot somebody, because in the nature of mind, there's no impurity, there are no karmic imprints. But you see, on a relative level, you still have those, and I'm going to come now in a few moments to the Alaya Janana, which is the Alaya ground of all. And that's what we started talking about in the last session. And the Alaya Vijnana, which is when the karmic imprints are imprinted into the Alaya and all your habits are there. And so that still comes out of the emptiness, out of the essence, but that is something that we are following all the time. Now, when you get that insight, you're no longer following the karmic imprints, but it doesn't mean you can do what you like, because if you go out and shoot or steal or do anything like that, then you have to pay for the consequences on a relative level. But it's still free in terms of the essence, does not have the karmic conditioning. The karmic conditioning comes from the essence. And it's not true, it's not permanent, it's not staining in the sense that we think of it. So what we're doing in the practice is going back to the original essence where we can see things as they are. Now let's go back to the saint and the story, and let's go back to the...
Mel, can I ask you something?
Of course, yes. Go on.
So does everything have a karmic essence? Is there not a possibility that you're at the wrong place at the wrong time? I just find it so hard to believe, like something, say the earthquake in Turkey, that every single individual there had to die, had to go through. Was it not? It seems to be too
cut and dry.
Organized, the karmic imprint, if you know what I'm saying.
Do you know what I mean? I know, Marcel, exactly what you're saying, because that comes from sin, the human mind. But if you just think of one or two things, I watched a couple of people being pulled out of the rubble after almost 2 weeks. Now think of that, someone under the ground for 10 or 11 days, or maybe even 12, and they were pulled out. And then you say, oh, well, they were meant to live and they were meant to die, and that's why they went in. You see, it's not cut and dry like that. Karma is a potential. Let me come to the Alaya Vijnana when I show you what he says about the karmic imprints, okay? Because there are many possibilities for the karmic imprints. So let's say your particular, we don't know what those people, what karma those people had who were in the earthquake. I can just tell you that all the people that were not supposed to be there had left the country the day before, okay? Or they just came out and got escaped, or they were in the next door building that never collapsed. It's the most amazing thing when you watch, but never see karma as cut and dry. Like that's what Clinton's asking. It's not cut and dry. Karma is something that is variable, because as I was reading Reginald Ray on the Alaya Vijnana, and he says that, he said something to the effect that, that karma, the storehouse is there, is full of potential. So let's say you did practice. Let's say you had a particular imprint and you did practice, asking for it to be cleansed, asking it for it to be to cleanse, being aware of it, not putting it into action in your life, it might never ever come to be. It might actually delete itself from the Alaya Vijnana. It's really, really possible to delete itself. Let's say that saint who got stung 4 times by the scorpion, let's say that his sting, as well as accepting it, his sting was from maybe a speech sting that he did with people in previous lifetimes. I'm just giving you a stupid example, but I'm saying it could really have come from that. And something in him knows that this is the right way for things to be. So even though he nearly dies in the river, he's got a smile on his face all the time. Now, when I go to Lama Yeshe Rinpoche and I see he's like half dead there lying in the bed, and I say, how are you? He goes, if my mind is okay, I'm okay. Okay, he doesn't even contemplate that this is a bad thing that he's lying there and he's such an active person and he can't be active. He actually accepts it. It is the acceptance that you're in the right place at the right time, which starts putting you in alignment with your real state of self-existing awareness. And when you've got that state of self-existing awareness, it's okay, as they say. It's okay. Somewhere inside us, we know. I mean, there were the most tragic things that happened there. Someone sent me a TikTok thing where this new female dog had just had her babies when the earthquake happened. And days afterwards, this guy was digging with the mother there, Matthew, with the mother there, digging in the rubble and everything. And the babies were brought out. And the mother went and lay down and just started feeding the babies. And everything was right. And you thought, she was under the ground. She escaped from under the ground. Her baby stayed under the ground. And now the owner has dug out the babies. What were the chance of digging out those babies? Because everything is just as it needs to be. And when we have that attitude, we cannot have that attitude with Sem, the ordinary human mind. We can only, Marcel, have that attitude when we go to Rigpa, the self-existing awareness. Otherwise, we can't. Now, ponder that. It's really important that you ponder it, because we've got to go and get that. We've got to stop the preconditions. And he says, we're going to do a meditation now, but from the existential condition of the ground of being, from when you look at the Alaya Vijnana, the causes and conditions of ignorance and confusion arise. And he talks about the different kinds of ignorance, the ignorance of not recognizing what you see, the ignorance, the co-emergent ignorance, which means the potential for ignorance was there right from the beginning. If we didn't use it, it wouldn't come to fruition. If we ignore the truth, it comes to fruition. And the ignorance of fixation, when you fixate on things, when you say, this is how it is, this is what I want, we misconstrue the expressions as being real existing things and entities. And then we become fixated on it. Like I fixated on your depression, fixated on your anger, fixated on how you want things to be in your family. And then one day, I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, why would you be with this man who seems to not be able to level with you? Can you look in the mirror and see what it is? I said to another man that I was seeing overseas, who's got an extremely positive, such a positive wife that she sees, she'll take a piece of dirt and see a diamond in it, that kind of thing. And he is the exact opposite. Everything, if things are going well, he'll be looking in 2 weeks' time when it all could fall apart, and he's worrying about when it all falls apart. And I said, how did you get to be married to this woman? Have a look. How did you get, you who always looks at the worst of everything, how did you get to be married to a woman that always looks at the best? Well, it's beautiful. It's just as it is. Because he's married to her because she's a mirror. And she forced him to come to me, and I'm trying to teach him to change and to look in the mirror of her beautiful positivity. Can you all understand that? We all in the right places. We all with the right people. We all where we should be. Yes, Kati, what did you want to say? And then let's do a meditation.
I think I was thinking of, so karma is complicated, but then it's also not complicated.
Oh.
So everything is as it should be. So even if something is really, really hard and difficult to go through, or you can see people in Turkey or Russia or everywhere in the world, people battling it, but everything is as it should be. Even things that seem cruel and unfair or horrible, those things need to happen. So, yeah.
Very good. No, what you're saying is 100%. And I really, really get that. And so the more difficult your life is, the more difficult, the more problems you've got, the more likely you are to clear the Alaya consciousness, which we're going to talk about straight after the meditation, the more likely you are to clear. So everything is right. And you go back to the self-existing wakefulness. And from the point of view of your highest nature, you can suddenly see the truth, even in the darkest moment. I mean, I look at Syria. Syria is in a war, has been in a war, and then gets an earthquake. I mean, how does that happen? I looked at Somalia, and what's that other place where they've got starving kids and famine and drought. And you think to yourself, are they in the right place? Well, let me tell you something. If you look at a few things in our land right now, and if you could fast forward the video to the future dramas, you'd actually see that kind of thing. Famine and absolute war, and killing of each other, you'd see that. If you look at greed and corruption and all these sort of things and fast forward into the future, then what you'll see with your highest mind is exactly how it should be. It really is. Okay, Diana, it was lovely to have you. Do you want to say anything before you go? You okay? All right, we're going to do a meditation now, and let's just do a little meditation, and I will give you 1 or 2 things that you can all do. So sit in your meditation posture and just breathe in and breathe out. As you breathe in, you're breathing in the fresh breath of your beautiful, highest, spacious, self-existing awareness. Breathing out, you're just letting everything be, in and out, letting everything absolutely be. When we become enlightened, the activities of nature and capacity continue. But while remaining in samsaric condition, one experiences those differently. We experience them through the ego of I want, I must have, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, this is my family history, this is my religion, my, self and ego. And when we look deeply, all of that just dissolves. At the end of a life, all those levels of consciousness dissolve. And we carry on with the alaya consciousness. So we can't fixate on the ego or self. We just recognize it for what it is, a temporary, transient, dramatic state, as are all your feelings, all your thoughts, everything that is happening to you. And so just let it be. And bring your mind back to the breath, back to the awareness, back to the knowing. As you breathe in and out, just give everything space to be. We don't need to annihilate anything. We don't need to fixate on anything. We don't need to analyze. We don't need to conceptualize. We just purely understand what everything is. Okay, so let's just look at these two alaya consciousness. You can look at, first of all, does everybody know what the alaya consciousness is? Let me just give that to you. Okay, the alaya consciousness is, as Reginald Ray puts it, we have 8 levels of ordinary consciousness. What the Buddha taught was that the self is made up of 5 skandhas: form, feelings, your perceptions, your habits, and your consciousness. Your consciousness is the 5th one. Now, that consciousness is what we are looking at. So very briefly, there are 5 sense consciousnesses. There's an eye consciousness, an ear consciousness, a taste consciousness, a smell consciousness, a feeling consciousness. 5 sense consciousnesses. Those consciousnesses just register. If there's a sound, it's not your ear that registers, your ear is just the organ. The auditory consciousness registers the sound. If you see something, the eye consciousness sees whatever it is through the eyes. So the 5 sense consciousnesses have no other perceptions. They just see and hear and taste whatever is. But then there's the mind consciousness. And the mind consciousness starts putting a label onto whatever it is, okay? It doesn't say, I like it yet, or I don't like it. It just puts a label. This is a bird, this is a person. This is a this is a that. That's what the mind consciousness do. Still completely concept free. But then you come to the seventh consciousness, and that's called the klesha, or if you wanted to call it the I, me, the emotional consciousness, okay? And that's when you start saying, I don't like this, I don't want this, let me get rid of this, you don't see things for what they are, you see them through I and me and myself. That's how you see them. That's the seventh consciousness. And the idea of a self, which the Buddha said never existed, makes us defend things. So what we do is what we don't want, we quickly run away from. What we do want, we cling on to. And so that seventh consciousness is where the problems start. And then the eighth consciousness is called the alaya consciousness, okay? Now, the alaya consciousness is what we call the storehouse consciousness. It's where all the karmic imprints and everything, the karmic seeds, are stored in the alaya consciousness. And the impression remains, if it's a deep impression, whatever you do, whatever you think, however you feel, if it's deep, that remains with you. Maybe through this life, and maybe you never resolve it, and it goes into the next life, and the one after, and the one after. And what it does, wait, people are getting bumped off, sorry, with this load shedding, it's terrible. What it does is that it creates, if we don't resolve it, it creates the circumstances, like as you were asking, Marcel, of the earthquakes, of the poverty family, of the starvation, of the famine. You know, it creates those circumstances because those imprints in the storehouse consciousness have never been resolved. Now, at death, all those levels of consciousness dissolve, but the alaya, remains with you at all different levels. So that's why when I'm seeing people and I see a repetition of what they're doing, like I was giving you that example of this guy married to this very positive woman. Now I said to him, do you know how long you've been doing this for? You've been taking whatever happens to you, and you've been already anticipating the worst a few weeks before it even happens. And you're putting it out, you're imprinting it and imprinting it and imprinting it and imprinting it, and then it comes to fruition. You don't get the job, or you're financially pressed, or you're unhappy about this. It all comes to fruition. Can you all understand that? Now, what I want you to understand, that the dimension of awareness, that self-existing awareness, is beyond this. It's beyond this completely and totally. So if you can get to that self-existing awareness that can see things as they really are, not as you perceive them with your klesha consciousness and then make an imprint. If you can see things as they really are, you can say, it's funny, so many negative things have been happening to me in my life. I've got to look at what is really happening here. What is the mirror showing to me? Once you can see that, then people are getting bumped off. It's terrible. Once you can see that, then what happens is that you start to clear the imprint, clear away the storehouse consciousness before you die, before it goes with you. So when I see repetition, 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 I look at the karmic tapestry and I go to the person, stop right now. Because what you're doing is you're making it deeper and deeper and deeper, but always remembering that so that you can clear it. How do you clear it? You can clear it with practice. You can clear it by understanding the truth and not responding to it like you always did in the past. Can you all understand that? So, Marcel, if you go through a lot of loss in your life, I was watching a person who absolutely lost everyone in their family. And that was such a thing to watch of this person. But that would happen instantly in the earthquake. Some people lost their whole family and one child survived out of that family. And what was the mirror telling them? You know, that there is no real attachment to anything that is permanent and going to last. That when we come to the end of our life, these characters that we played in the drama, these children, these spouses, these people, none of them really belong to us. People concoct with their dualistic ideas that when I die, I will be reunited. My whole family will be waiting for me. I mean, your whole family is not going to be waiting for you. They've already gone on into the next drama, relative drama. You have to understand this. And when you say, how can I? When you are using that full awareness, it is incredible to understand. Because even though you feel a tremendous sadness, and that is very important. That doesn't mean that if somebody goes through a loss, they say, oh, well, it's a loss. It was just a drama and it's past. No, no, no. You have to go through the feelings and the emotions of the human being because that is very important. But, so they're coming back. Okay. But you have to go through those feelings, but you have to understand what those feelings really are, that none of them are lasting, permanent, solid, and none of them are you. You are not a depressed person. You are a person who is going through a depressive time. That's a completely different idea. What do you want to say to me? Not you, Eric. I want to hear from other people. What do you want to say to me? Anything. Because I want to just give you that last part of the alaya, the ground of being, the ground of all, and the ground of being. They're both a little bit different, and I want you to understand them, and you'll understand them better when I go on with the other things. But whatever you want to say, say. Ask, talk. It's very important. I am not, especially in the role that I play in therapy and counseling, I am not for 1 minute suggesting that people don't go through trauma and don't go through awful, awful feelings. And I cry with them. I cry a lot with people when they're going through terrible trauma. I cry when I look on the television and I see the suffering that people are going through. Those tears are deep inside me. I am a human being, but I also have a Buddha nature. And the Buddha nature can see clearly what this is about, where the human can't. So you go through the human part, the feelings, you can't skip that part. But you do it with a full understanding. Clinton, I can see the mind is working overtime. Shame there's Patricia, she said, load shedding the whole night.
Sorry.
What do you go on?
So when I took refuge with Lama Yeshe last year,
Yes.
just to give you a bit of a background, I've been mostly receiving teachings online from Lama Tsultrim Elioni from Tara Mandala in the US and Garchen Rinpoche and so on. but I felt a great need to connect to a home sangha, home group sangha.
Wonderful, welcome.
Thank
Okay.
you. So when I took the refuge vow with Lama Yeshe, as I went up to, when he put the protection quarter on my neck, he said to me specifically, and it was a very intense moment, and he said to me, while looking me dead in the eyes, that I should do the Vajrasattva mantra. And he specifically said to me, you should do the Vajrasattva mantra whenever you feel your mind is going down. That mantra will save you. And without making it sound too sort of disconnected or too metaphysical, I think that the importance of the guru in taking you to that ground, I don't think that can be overstated enough. Yeah, because in Lama Yeshe, in that moment, there was that moment of just pure spaciousness where he was transmitting something to me, and it was really transcendent.
How beautiful. You know how many times I've had that experience with him, many, many, many times. Just sometimes he'll just come out with a little comment to me, and it'll be something that profoundly affects my life. Now, if he said, do the Vajrasattva mantra, he'll say just a little thing, like he said to Kathy when she was going through her illness and everything. He'll just say a little thing. Now, if you begin to understand that Vajrasattva mantra, okay, which has 100 syllables, if you look at the Vajrasattva mantra, it's the most amazing thing. And in my Monday morning group, I was teaching them about the 100 deities, wrathful and peaceful deities that, that are spoken about in great depth for when you go into the bardos in the afterlife. So when you go into the bardos, first go into the spaciousness. Most of us can't recognize that clear light. And then you go into the second bardo, where the 100 deities become manifest in front of your eyes, peaceful and wrathful. Now, those 100 deities are actually the facets of your own awakened mind. It's the most fascinating thing, because what you have to do when you come to those deities, you have to recognize them. Now, if you look at the word recognize, it's the most amazing word. Know, recognize, reunite with them. Those are your aspects. Okay, in my practice, I do tons of things with the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities, okay, to really get me to recognize. Now, if he said to you to cleanse, it's absolutely amazing, because the ultimate level of the Vajrasattva mantra is that you are cleansing with those syllables all the aspects of your awakened mind. So what happens is, once you get the awakened mind, the negative side, like what I was teaching them yesterday, was that for as many negative things as you've got in you, there are the positive enlightened things, because the negative things are really the positive enlightened things. So it is exquisite that you had a transcendent experience and that he gave you that. And every time you think of yourself doing that Vajrasattva mantra and seeing that beautiful pure light over you, think about purifying the alaya vijnana, where the storehouse consciousness, where all your imprints are. That is one of the best practices to do, to cleanse those things. But of course, if there are very deep imprints, something will manifest. In other words, you'll have to go through whatever it is you have to go through, but you'll do it with absolute ease. So I find that exquisite. Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
Thank you for explaining. That's a beautiful explanation. Thank you.
That helped you. Okay. Anyone else want to say anything? Jade, you're also looking very pensive. We've even got Jade from Costa Rica. Yeah, we have them from all over the world. Just hang on, Eric. Jade, do you want to say anything? Yeah, okay. Okay, Eric, quick.
As far as I've understood, the Alaya Vijnana is the subtle mind. It is the subtle mind.
That's a liar. A liar. Yeah.
Alaya Vijnana. Now, if it's the subtle mind, this is that mode of awareness that precedes the brain and carries on after this brain and body. So it's that next level of awareness.
Hang on. You got it wrong about what did you call it in the beginning?
I called it the Alaya Vijnana. Alaya.
But just let me just differentiate for you before you give your thing. Okay. And this is what is so important if you really look at it, what Traleg Kyabgon says. Okay. He says you can distinguish between the ground of being that is called Alaya Jnana. Jnana means wisdom. So it is the pure wisdom essence. And the ground of all, which is the Alaya Vijnana. Okay, the one's the Alaya Jnana, the wisdom, and the one's the Alaya Vijnana. Now listen very carefully. The ground of being, which is the Alaya Jnana, which is the essence of everything, is unconditioned, no causes and conditions, and not contingent on anything else. Okay, whereas the ground of all, the Alaya Vijnana, is the basis of samsara itself, samsaric experience itself. It's the conditioned mind. So let me finish this and you'll go back to yours so that everyone can know. The unconditioned ground of being, of everything, of everything, called the ground of being, okay, allows the conditioned mind to operate. What does that mean? It means what you are thinking of, and we'll do this in much more depth, comparing what you are thinking about and what you are doing is still coming out of the ground of being, the pure essence. It's still coming out of that, okay? Because everything comes out of that. But what the ground of all, the Alaya Vijnana, is the repository of the karmic traces and all your habits and all your dispositions. And it exists as primordial ignorance, ignoring the truth, providing the precondition for the emergence of all your obscurations, your delusions. And it's called the storehouse consciousness. That's another name for it, because it's the reservoir of all one's mental experiences in terms of thinking and emotion. Now just ponder this, okay? Because that might really, all our experiences related to conditioned phenomena are dependent on the whole of the, on the whole of that ground of being is the essence. And out of that comes the ground of all. So Alaya Jnana and Alaya Vijnana comes out of it. And when you understand that, then you know that there's hope, because all your thoughts and all your habits can be changed because of the wisdom mind. Sorry, now you can go. And I just wanted to say that so it's quite clear. I don't want people to get confused, And the base of the ground of all is defective, something that you need to transcend, says the Lama. Okay.
And when you transcend this defective ground, obviously that would be the phase of Traleg Kyabgon where we cut through in Dzogchen, but I'm not going to get into that. You did answer my question. The Alaya Vijnana is the subtle mind. And now from what I'm gathering, the Alaya Jnana is the Dharmakaya. That's the divine mind, of course, from which everything arises.
The ground of everything, of all, the ground of being. But when they use the ground of all and the ground of being, it's a little confusing. I prefer to use the Alaya Janana and the Alaya Vijnana. Because if you see the word Vijnana means away from the wisdom. Now I'm asking you tonight, are you all okay to go away from the wisdom and live your life as you do in samsara? That's the question of all these causes and conditions, because I'm not okay. I'm sick and tired of it. You know, when Joss, he's sitting here, but when he says to me, you know, you're always doing this or you're always doing that, I might give an argument back, but inside, when I come into my shrine room, I go, well, if I'm always doing that, then I need to change. I need to do something else. I need to see it differently. So even though I don't always give him the satisfaction of saying it, I really see that I have to do it differently. And I think if you look at all your relationships, you'll see that right there, one of your difficult children, your difficult spouse, your difficult this one does that, your difficult boss, your difficult whatever, those are your blessings. Because once you can purify the Alaya Vijnana, then you're free. You really are free. Mart, are you saying nothing tonight? What do you think? Are you tired, Mart?
Yeah, I'm tired. I am tired, but yeah, what do I think? I don't know. I mean, intellectually, all good, and yeah, I mean, I'm still struggling with obviously my situation, and the more I listen to this, yeah, the more I think, yeah, there is a number one, there is a very deep imprint.
Good.
And number two, yeah, I do need to approach the situation in a different way.
Thank you. And that's with everything, okay? If you've got too small a dwelling, you've got to look at it as a bigger dwelling. If you've got to go and live somewhere else, you've got to look at it as though you've got to look at it and you've got to say, I've got to see it differently. I must see it from the point of view of my self-existing awareness. It's very important because it's so amazing that, like Marcel's question earlier in the night, to say, I can't believe that everybody's in the right place at the right time. I found it absolutely fascinating that what happens with people all the time is, say people decide, I'm going to immigrate, I'm going overseas. Okay, certain people say they're going to go overseas, and there's one obstacle after another, after another, after another. Whatever they get there, they can't get a job, they can't get this, they can't get that. It just, everything goes against the grain. And other people plan that, and the world opens up. And you start to sense where you are trying to go against what you need to be doing. You sense it. You really, really sense it, because you can feel a pressure that is never there from your nature of mind. Your nature of mind has no pressure. It flows like a waterfall. I can see the difference in me if I'm struggling to teach and say something to someone. When I'm in my nature of mind, I never struggle. There's always an answer. There's always a different way to put it. There's always something flowing through you. But none of us trust in this. Now, I ask the question, how do we transcend, just to end, the ground, the Alaya Vijnana? How do we transcend it while living in a body and going through suffering experiences? And the answer is that it is by understanding first, then experiencing, then realizing. You recognize the truth slowly, 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 and it comes slowly through all the practices given. Then we're in this world, but not of it. So it makes little difference what we're going through. It's all a dream. And you know, in this beautiful sharp Vajra of conscious awareness tantra, it says, and I wrote it down, when understanding arrives at the ultimate nature, realization is certain. Can I read that again? When understanding arrives, and this is from Dajjom Rinpoche, when understanding arrives, the ultimate nature, then realization is certain. We have to go there. There's no other alternative. Shame, Samki, you've been in and out, in and out, in and out. So anything else anybody wants, because I think it's a lot, and I think I'm just going to end with the Dalai Lama's beautiful quote. Okay, he said, here's a question that was posed to the Dalai Lama. He said, what thing about humanity surprises you the most? His answer was as follows: man surprises me the most, man and woman, okay, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices his money to recuperate his health. And then he's so anxious about the future that he doesn't enjoy the present time. And as a result, he doesn't live in the present or the future. And he lives as if he's never going to die. And then he dies having never really lived. That's the quote that he gave. Okay. And maybe that's what we do all the time. We have to see it. We have to get it. Otherwise, we're just going to go on and on and on and on. I'll stay if anybody wants to ask anything, but it's so important, this. And then we're going to go on next time to comparing Sem and Rigpa, which I think is really important. So let's dedicate. Fiona's still here. Yeah, she is amazing. She's in the dark shade. So we dedicate to all those in the earthquakes, in the war, in Ukraine, in Somalia, in, I can't even remember all the names of the places where there are terrible things going on. We dedicate all these teachings, may even a little bit of it go out in light to all these people suffering, homeless people, hungry people, really people at the brink of, at the edge of life that they can't live anymore. We dedicate all our teachings to them and to all the people that have a lot but can't see the truth. So through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonam die tamche zipane topne nepe dranam pamshene jiganachi balap topaye sipe sole dua drowarsho. So anybody need anything? We survive through the load shedding. I mean, you should just see all the people that are saying, sorry, can't come, can't get on. I don't know. What's the answer, Fee? What's the answer when people have got load shedding they want to come?
I don't know, because sometimes, you know, you may well have one of these, which is these things, but then if the towers go down, like me, you must have seen, I came in and out a couple of times because it kept dipping and then getting back to normal again. So I don't know. It's one solution. This thing,
So,
a modem. Yeah. There.
That's good. Hello, Mel. The people must get inverters or UPS or something. It's not that expensive.
It's expensive. It's very expensive. Not everybody can afford it.
I'm saying it's not that expensive. Like I've got a cheap ones, like maybe 1,800 rand or something.
Oh, really? Did
and
you get
just to keep the Wi-Fi on?
Yeah, you can get those. Yeah.
So you go and get an inverter to keep the Wi-Fi on, and it's about 1,800 rand.
Yeah, not to power the whole house or anything else, just to keep the Wi-Fi on.
But that's really good. And I must tell people, because, you know, when people say, no, it's so expensive and everything, it probably isn't even, you know, that. And you can get those data sticks. They're just a few $100 I know lots of people can't even afford that. But the bottom line is, okay, Jay, the bottom line is that we have to do alternative energy. We've got no choice. I mean, you know, it's really, and we've got this beautiful inverter, and it's not supposed to have a gap, but it's got a 30-second gap. So when you're on the Zoom or when you're on the television, it just cuts off, and then you've got to reload again, which is ridiculous, because it shouldn't do that at all. They won't come and fix it. We've tried and tried and tried, and they won't come and fix it because they're so busy now setting up things in people's lives. They don't want to come and fix something that's already been paid for, you know, which is terrible actually, because, you know, it's a strong inverter and everything works perfectly after that. Almost everything in our house works, but there's a gap. And they won't come and fix it. It's just unbelievable, you know. So I just look at the time and I go, oh, sure, but if it's 6 to 8, then there's no problem, because when I come on, I'm already on the inverter. But if it goes off at 8, I'm kicked off, you know, and then I've got to load and come back on. Anyway, what can I say? So any other questions or anything, you know, that anyone wants?
Melanie, can I ask, is there a WhatsApp group for these specific teachings that I can be added to, or?
Absolutely. Just give me your cell number and then I'll add. Do you get our newsletter?
I'm on the KSDJ WhatsApp group, so I get all of their information, but not the KSDR one.
Okay, but get yourself onto that. Fee, just put up Nadine's particulars, our email. Get yourself on that, and then give me your telephone that I can put you on my broadcast group. Okay.
All right. Can I message it to you via the messenger? Yeah.
Sure. Or you can message it directly to me. I'll give you my number. Have you got a pen there?
Yeah. Okay. Well, if anyone, not everyone minds me giving out my number, it's fine. I'll give you my number quickly.
No, just give me your number quickly, and then I've got
All
it,
right.
and then it's easy. It doesn't matter. Okay.
All right. 081.
Okay.
593.
Could have done it on the WhatsApp thing. Okay. Yeah.
4816.
You will now get a lot of spam.
That was what I was afraid of.
I took your number.
What's your surname, Clinton?
My surname is Kingma, Kingma.
Okay, you're going to be on. And
Great,
then
thank
you'll get all my things, and then Fiona's putting her stuff on there.
Okay.
Stop. Why didn't